I wanted to talk to you today about the value of developing a greater sense of self-awareness. And really what I see in that and the value in that is being able to know yourself well enough to come across as authentic. So I think this has got a great connection to the topic today. To be able to know yourself well, you're going to be able to succeed professionally in the business world. You're going to be able to live with greater integrity and sincerity in your life. When you know who you are and you know what you believe and you can be authentic, that's being real. That's sincerity. And then lastly, being able to pursue your work with zeal and passion. I think that when you know what it is that you believe, when you know who you are, you can really put all these things together. So 3 things I wanted to talk about today are self-awareness basics. This is going to not be news to most of you. Strategies for building deeper self-awareness. And then lastly, using self-awareness to grow and improve in your life and to become more authentic. So before I do this, I want to tell you a story about myself. So I'm going to tell on myself bad. And I'm going to tell you, first of all, that this journey towards self-awareness is one that I am not good at in many areas of my life. I'm learning it. I'm not perfect. And I'm going to go back to senior year of undergrad. And I went to a job fair. Do any of you recognize this scene? Thousands of undergrad students milling around, bad suits, good suits, no suits. I was one of them. And I was 21 years old, and I was living in Minneapolis, Minnesota. My number one criteria for getting a job was, I'm not staying one more winter in this godforsaken city or state. I can't do it. It's too cold here. So I was going around to all the booths, and I said, where are your operations, sir? So nice to meet you. Oh, thank you, Target. I'll move on. All right, Best Buy Corporate. Wow, I heard you have a huge operation. I'll talk to you later. Not that they wanted me, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't do the cold. So I finally got to a consulting company. I didn't know a lot about consulting. I'm a consultant now, ironically, all these years later. But I got to a consulting booth. It sounded like they did pretty cool work. And when I asked where they were located, they said, see if you can decode this answer, you can live anywhere with a major international airport. In other words, you live in a hotel, but I didn't put that together at that point. So at any rate, so I said, okay, well, nice to meet you. We kind of talked about the opportunity, and I left, gave them my resume, went on to the next thing, and about 15 or 20 minutes later, I got a call on my cell phone, and they wanted me to come over for an interview. And I went back, I was kind of excited, sounded like a good opportunity. I sat in that little booth behind the job fair, and I have to tell you, it was the worst interview of my life. I was situational-based interviewing. I didn't even know what that was. They were asking me tricky questions, and I just kept thinking in my mind, what do they want me to say? How am I supposed to answer this? What are they looking for? Who do they want me to be? What does a consultant do? And I answered every question from this position of trying to fit into the mold that they wanted for me, which is not always a bad thing in interviewing, but I was definitely on the wrong side of balance there. I was far on that side. So fast forward about 5-6 months, a couple months after graduation, probably about 15 interviews later, I interviewed a lot. And I just wasn't getting it. It wasn't working. Every interview that I went to, maybe I was a little less worried about what they wanted and a little bit more interested in understanding what I wanted and was good at and how I could be real with them. But I just had this moment where I thought, this is exhausting. I can't find a job. I can't find a company who wants me, and it was hard. And I just thought, you know what? My next interview, forget it. I'm going to be so honest, but before I'm honest, I better figure out what it is I want. So I came to, I was in Nashville at the time, and I interviewed with a consulting firm here in town, and I asked them a few questions about the company, and then she asked me several questions, and at the end she said, tell me one of your top professional goals. I thought, here it comes. I've thought about this. I've done some self-awareness and I know what it is I want. And I said, I want to be so good at my job that when it comes time for me to be a mama, you can't live without me. And you'll cater to whatever I want in terms of a balance between my work and my life at home with the baby. So I don't have any kids yet, but I said that, and they hired me. So anyway, that's my story. So anyway, I want to kind of go back to these topics in our discussion today and talk to you for a few minutes about the basics of self-awareness. So you've heard this term, know thyself. I think that when we think about these are the things that we all kind of know and think about. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your blind spots? What are the things you don't even know that you don't know about yourself? In addition to that, which I consider this looking inwardly, kind of focusing internally, what do you believe? What are your passions? What are your values? What does that belief structure look like? That's very inward seeking. It takes quiet time. It might take a pen and a paper to write some of this down. Don't be afraid if you write it down and it changes. It's not a bad thing, but it's always a good exercise, and it takes some focus. I also like to think about evaluating outwardly as well. We don't live in the world all by ourselves. We live in the world where we're filled with other people and circumstances, things that trigger emotions in us, things that trigger behaviors in us. And we need to know what it is that causes us to react in certain ways. Somebody might remind you of somebody that you didn't like, and you might act a certain way. But it's good to know what those things are so that you catch them before you react as opposed to after. That's the goal. I'm still getting there. So I think that the other thing I wanted to talk about is kind of moving beyond the basics is strategies for deeper self-awareness. So a lot of you are familiar with personality inventories. Strengths Finder's a book out there. There's Myers-Briggs. We use something at my job called the HBDI. There's the DISC. There's probably 100 great personality inventories. I think that's a good place to start. I don't think that's the ending point. I think we can get stuck in a rut or stuck in a box of what our personality inventory says. At work, we'll say, HBDI is color-coded, right? So red, yellow, green, blue. Oh, that's just your red talking. Or it's like a cop-out for me. I'm just being yellow right now, so you're just going to have to be okay with it. And you want to know what? I'm more than yellow, and you're more than red. And we have to be able to understand the system and the structure that those different tools give us, the context for understanding others, the context for understanding ourselves, but go beyond that. So I think a personality inventory is a great thing. I think it just doesn't stop there. The other thing I wanted to talk about is using real experience, whether it's volunteer experience, a job, whether it's a project at school, to stop and take an inventory after each experience of what did I like about that and why? What did I hate about that? What made me not want to go to work about that job? Because everybody has to start somewhere. Everybody has a job when they first start out, or they have a volunteer before they even get that job. And you have to do things you don't like to do, but hopefully you can narrow and use self-awareness and authenticity, being honest with yourself about what makes you tick, what makes you so excited to go into work. That's this passion piece of what I wanted to talk about today. You want to be so excited. You want to be ready to get in your car and drive to work. So I think that using real life experience to hone in on what you're best at is a really good thing. So let's talk about, lastly, growing and improving. So let's just say you did a really good job and figured yourself out. And, this is who I am and what I'm about. But it never should stop there. We should always be on a quest to know who we are, but want to make ourselves better.